Well, hello there. I'm actually starting this again. There were some technical difficulties on the last video. I'd like to just welcome you. My name is Thomas Steves, and this is a new venture for me. Give you a little background from my my intro on the page. I'm early 50s, almost basically, right around the corner. Gen Xer, 30 years of working in the entertainment industry. Uh, Toy industry, toy design, commercial products. Also have 30 plus years of working in ministry in one form or another, whether it's volunteer or on staff. Um, and I just have a large background of experiences. My favorite artists, I'm a career artist, as you can see in the background. I love monsters, horror movies, um, all different types of movies and music. That's something that inspires me, keeps me totally uh, charged. My favorite artists growing up were Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Van Gogh. And the reason I liked all three of them, Leonardo da Vinci, because he was truly a Renaissance man. For him, it was life was all about experiences. Life was all about growing, learning, and trying new things. I loved Michelangelo because of his execution of his artwork. It was always about perfection. He was always striving to be better. And what I loved about Van Gogh, I loved the fact that Van Gogh used all of his passion, his love, and he put it into everything that was what he was about, all of his art. He didn't make any money as an artist, but he loved um, to express himself that way. And here it is, you know, hundreds of years later, 100 and something years later, his artwork is stood the test of time. So those are the artists that I enjoy. Now, the reason I'm really focusing on this channel is this is years in the making. Working the way I have for 30 plus years in the entertainment industry, coming from the background I have, I interface with a lot of people, a lot of different styles of people. Um, and in that, I get a lot of different backgrounds on the world. Now, I am a Christian. I've been a Christian since 1989. I wasn't raised in the church. On Give you a little background on myself. On my dad's side, it was Catholicism, and on my mom's side, there wasn't really a set theology. When I am your typical Gen Xer. Let me jump back on that a little bit about the reason I came up with the name Midnight in the Valley and talk about the Gen X crowd. This is my target audience, the Gen Xers, the late 40s, mid to late 40s, and mid 50s, early 60s. That's the crowd that this is for. You guys, we're the Jan Brady generation. We're stuck in the middle. We have the baby boomers on one end, the millennials on the other. There was a time in our window when we were the bee's knees. We were it. We were the, going to take on the world. We were the MTV generation. Then technology caught up and changed all that. And it created a whole new generation beyond us. Our kids now, the millennials and post millennials, are part of this whole new era that we're kind of getting swamped in, left to the wayside. Our voice has gotten drowned out in a lot of ways because we're dealing with literally like a valley. What is a valley? You've got hills on either side and in the middle. The baby boomers on one side, They're heading up into, they're in the throes of retirement. They are the predominant voting bloc right now. Geographically and numerically, they're one of the larger populations. Um, so they control the political forum, the political platform that we live in. On the other end, you have the millennials and post millennials, which are another large demographic numerically, and they control the pulse of America in terms of culture, pop culture, because they're the largest consumers of media right now. And so it's interesting because if you look at the baby boomers and you look at the Gen Xers, our generation, we there was a lot of firsts with us. Really, the first use of computers by the younger generation, we were ushered that in with the home console games, the Fairchild F, the Atari 2600. Later, the first real home computers was like the Commodore 64, and then after 1984, you had the Apple, the Apple computer, and but in terms of media, we had limited access to have a voice. If you think about it, who were we influenced by? Gen- uh, Generation X didn't have access to media to produce it for themselves. So most of the people that we were influenced by were the baby boomers and the greatest generationers. Like I said, I was born in the 70s. My dad, though, was born in the 40s. So, in terms of pop culture, I was raised on whatever he had in his record collection at the time. So, he loved everything from the 20s and 30s and 40s, which is what his parents listened to. Then, as I came along, my dad was still listening to newer music, and I started to add to that. So, my frame of reference, and most of the Gen Xers, our frame of reference in terms of pop culture and how we were influenced goes decades before us. We have knowledge, we have a knowledge base that is steeped in the generations that came before us, because when TV was created, when radio was created, it was the greatest generation, the around the turn of the century, that really uh, solidified those art forms, those forms of communication. The old silent movies, and then into radio, and then the first television series. So we were raised on people much older than us on our airwaves, Milton Berle and all that stuff. And that was our frame of reference. Now, it's interesting because mm, until later, 20 years, it's usually a 20-year cycle. When we started to get older and enter the workforce and then become the heads of studios and start making our own music, when we actually had access to um, those tools when we got old enough. Now, remember, the internet came out mass use wise in the mid 90s, 93, 94, 95, right in there when I was in college. So we're still starting to figure this whole thing out about search engines, about chat rooms, about being connected worldwide and getting a voice out there. The millennials, that's all they've ever known. The millennials have had a voice coming right out of the womb. Put a cell phone in a kid's hands and they can learn to take selfies. Then get these kids on the internet and they're typing away and they're building videos. We had to scrounge for that because that was all new technology and that was really expensive. Now it's, really inexpensive to get yourself up and running. So, what that's done though, if you think about it, we had a lot of influences, but we also had some negatives. And the negatives were the Gen X was the first generation to actually have less. than the generation previous. Monetarily, family wise, we lived in the shadow of the baby boom right after, so the baby boomers, they were raised with the affluence of the spoils of war, of World War II, the economic boom, and with that, a little bit more freedoms, a little bit, and so a little bit more exploration, which had its positives in that it expanded the arts and the reach and the voice of that generation, and we got the fall off from that, but we also got the negatives of that. Uh, our generation was the first generation to really have divorce overshadow um, stable family environments and all the crime problems that go with it. We're the latchkey generation. We are the generation, like I said, we're the Jan Brady generation. We kind of got glossed over. We had our little window, but the Cindy Brady came along real quick and robbed our thunder. And with that, we had the slacker generation come around, where we had a lot more drug use, uh, and not just exploratory, but like lifestyle issue drug use, to a really negative extent. Again, broken homes. Now, when did when did the divorce issue start? I'm not going to get too political tonight, but the moment in the late 60s, I think it's 68, 69, when California was the first state to really push it, was the no fault divorce. And without going too deep, the champion of that, and I hate to say it, guys, was Ronald Reagan. Made it basically a law that California was going to be a no fault divorce state. That opened the floodgates to every other state in the nation over time, pretty much becoming a no fault divorce state. Anybody could get divorced for any reason that you want, smoke them if you got them. And that started the breakdown of the family because it removed responsibility, it removed accountability. Now, there's a lot of reasons people get divorced, some legitimate, others not. Not going to go into that here. That's for another discussion. But that being said, we lived in the shadow of that. I'm a product of a broken home, latchkey kid. And I lived with my mom for a while and lived with my dad later on, and it was not fun. I am one of the things you're going to find out about me real quick. I'm brutally honest, and I'm also very self-honest. I am not a perfect person. I'm flawed as they come. I've got my own damage. Uh, I know you do, and that's kind of the purpose of this channel is to find common ground for all of us, Generation Xers, people that I've been talking to for a long time. My goal is for us to connect in one form or another. And so, with that, where was I going with this? Now, I'm going to be transparent here. This is the second time I filmed this video. I did a 40-minute video previous, forgot to turn on the sound. So I'm having to recap my thoughts. Bear with me. This is all new. I'm learning as I go. So, that being said, where I'm at is that the purpose of this channel is to provide a forum for people like myself. Now, I want to jump on the issue of the millennials. One of the downsides of having access to the internet like these kids have had from day one, and we did it to them because we easy to pacify the kids. When we were kids, we were sat down in front of a television while mom and dad did whatever, and it was the babysitter. Now we put a cell phone in front of the kid, an iPad, an iPod, whatever, as a pacifier. And that's not healthy, but it is what it is, and that's where we're at. So, like I said earlier, our generation was influenced by decades past, by older generations. Now that this generation, the millennial generation, has access to media that they can manipulate and create and post, these kids have a voice right out of the womb. So they can post up on the internet, get on their cell phone or whatever, and have their friends go back and forth. They've got a voice and they're wanting to share it. Now the positive is that it gets a lot of people engaged. The downside is there's not a breadth of knowledge behind the information they're sharing. So you have a lot of kids, influencers, influencing each other in a vacuum with not a lot of knowledge behind it. And I'll give you an example. I used to do special effects makeup, and that was what I really trained that I wanted to be when I got older. When I was younger, I always wanted to be a special effects makeup artist. As I started working in the industry, I started seeing things differently and wanted to try new things and just explore new avenues. But as a kid, I didn't have access to the internet. There was no internet. Learning about special effects makeup, because it was special, it was secretive. I had to hunt up and down trying to find um, any knowledge I could. So whatever library had an old book on makeup, I would do experimentation. I would call people. I would scour phone books for any makeup artist I could find in the LA area. I would watch credits on movies or making of, and it was a lot of trial and error on how to learn, and it taught me a lot about tenacity. I learned history. I soaked up everything I could about the craft, and it made me, I'm not going to be cocky here, but it gave me a wide breadth of knowledge that prepared me for the career that I would go into. First big movie I worked on was 1920, and I'd been pursuing it since 10 years old. So now you've got these young kids who learn one little thing, but yet they want to go out and share the world and say, look at me, because everybody wants to be known. Everybody wants to be, and I'll get on this issue a little bit later, loved, adored, wanted. So these kids are using the internet to find importance in the world. The problem is they don't have a lot to back it up. And so these kids, I'm sure you've seen the tutorials on YouTube. I call it the zipper face. Hey, I'm a professional makeup artist. I'm going to teach you how to put a zipper on your face and look like it's open. Blah, blah, blah. So everybody does a zipper face tutorial now. And all these young influencers say, I'm a professional makeup artist. Well, what makes you a professional? I've got a YouTube channel. I've got followers. So that's the definition of being a professional. You have followers. In my day, and it still is, I'm getting old. Professional used to be, it was a career. You were paid to do it because you were trained and you had knowledge behind it. So now a lot of these kids who are posting these videos on whatever topic you talk about, whatever topic they talk about, you ask them a question about history. So if I was to talk to one of these YouTubers, and I would do this on occasion, I would say, okay, well, what do you know about this makeup artist or this guy or that guy? Blank stare, nothing. They wouldn't know. And they're like, well, that's not important because, that's old stuff. We would understand what we would do now. What they didn't realize was most of the stuff they're coming up with and the techniques have already been done. It's just we didn't have the internet to post it up there. It's not new. They're not bringing anything new to the table. But that's just the nature of the differences in terms of where we're at and the MTV generation. The MTV generation, the writing was on the wall for us the moment MTV quit playing music videos. And we can go into a whole other category on that about, but that's neither here nor there. In terms of my channel now, I want to talk to you about kind of the format. I love movies and I love music. And when I do my artwork, you can see the artwork back here that I do. I've got a dog here, so bear with me. My dog's hanging out with me. I use music and movies as a touch point for discussion. And we all watch movies, we all like music in one form or another, and I find a lot of common ground that you can find great lessons in lyrics, in movies and scenes in movies. People say, well, that's just movies, it's not real life. What you don't understand is every movie and TV show is written by a human. Well, as long as AI isn't involved with the whole writer strike, but it's written by a human who has real experiences that they're taking and putting it into a scripted format. So there is truth in every screenplay you read. That's why we watch shows, because we like seeing things we identify with. So that's what I'll use a lot of in terms of my talks. Now, I want to talk the issue about influencing. People will say, oh, getting back to the millennials, what the millennials are doing in terms of using the internet, it's creating, and I hate to use this word, but it's creating a form of narcissism. Look at me. Look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. I've got a show. I'm influencing people. I'm important because I'm influencing others. But everybody wants to be an influencer, but no one wants to be influenced. So they're all clamoring for some sort of importance. And then people will say, well, aren't you doing the same thing by trying to be one of the young kids using the same media? And on the face of it, you could say, yes, maybe I am. But the other side of it is this. I I'm not doing this to be successful. I'm not doing this to build a brand. I'm doing this because for the last 30 some odd years, I've loved people and I love talking with people. I love connection with people. In my line of work, I've been blessed with a lot of different abilities. A lot of times I'm paid to do artwork, manual work, like what you see back here. I'm paid to draw something, build something. But in the artistic world, you're dealing with a lot of people who are personalities. So you're dealing in a lot of work environments that have a lot of personalities around you. I don't function well if I'm asked to do artwork like this, where I have to focus and draw. I cannot do that well in an environment with a lot of people. Why? Because I know myself. I'm a social person. I love people. I love engaging with people. It's not just about the job, it's about the person that we're working on. I want to make sure that I'm connected with people. So if I need to focus on this, but I've got all these people around me, the tendency for me to start talking and socializing can sometimes get in the way of me having doing my work. And this will suffer because I'm so interested in this. So a lot of times I like working alone. When I have to do physical labor like this, I like working alone because it helps me focus on the job at hand. Now, if I'm paid to be social, I'm paid to talk, I'm paid to do all those things, that's a different story. I'm paid to engage. I'm hired to engage. But so the reason I'm doing this channel is not to build a brand. It's not to pump myself up. It's to connect with people. I'm going to be brutally honest right now. Went through a bad divorce. Still causing a lot of problems. I'm not going to go too deep into it. For respect to the other parties, my child, and it's been pretty devastating to me in a lot of ways, and it's lingering. I'm not a perfect person. I'm broken. Um, I've had a lot of ups and downs in my life. It's kind of the name of the thing, midnight in the valley. I've lived a lot of my life in a valley, just trying to climb out of it, only to fall back in. All this gray hair, it's earned. But what it's taught me along the way, the reason I haven't cashed in my check yet, is because people have come alongside me and I realized I'm not alone. And when people hear my story and I can talk with them and then I learn their story, I realize we're not alone. So I'm using this platform to connect with people. As I talk about the things that are in my mind that I've experienced and dealt with other people, maybe you are going to hear some things that resonate with you. As time goes, I have a chat window right here. If there's a question you have, if there's something you want to talk or ask, please do. Now, mind you, I know we might get some trolls along the way and people trying to upset the flow. I'll work on that the best way I can. My goal over time is to maybe even have a call-in situation where people can call in and talk. I'm going to have moderated um, discussions with people chiming in on different subjects. I want this to be like a late night radio talk show that you kind of feel comfort with. I grew up on a guy named Art Bell who passed away a few years ago. He used to do a show called uh, uh, AM Coast to Coast. He was all paranormal, but the way he handled it, his late night aspect, every night when I was working on my artwork, they still have a Coast to Coast show. I would listen, and it never really called in because that wasn't my thing, but would call in on other late night programs. So that's what I want this to be for people. Is I want if there's something that you're dealing with that maybe I'm chiming in on, I don't want you to feel alone. Because see, late at night when you're lying in bed is when the thoughts come in, the good and the bad thoughts. It's when we go throughout our day, when we look at our lives. I think it was Socrates that said, "A life unexamined is a life not worth living." If you're not examining your life and coming through and rolling things over and hopefully finding the value in life and sometimes questioning the value, then you're not really living life. You're just kind of going on autopilot. And we were created. Whether you now this is going to get some theology stuff, and I know there's going to be people that are going to watch these videos that are not Christian, that are not even religious, might even be anti-religion. That's fine. If you're not religious, all I ask is that if you want to engage in a discussion here, don't slam somebody who is religious. Likewise, if you're religious, don't slam somebody who is. But questioning them is not slamming them. That's seeking discussion and that's seeking enlightenment. I see a lot of people who believe one way or another who just demonize somebody who believes differently than them. That's not what I'm about. That's not what I'm into. I'm still learning a lot of the technical side of this, so the video quality will get better, audio quality will get better. But I want to talk a little bit more about, again, my motives. I'm not doing this for narcissistic reasons. I'm doing it because of, well, it's the issue of love. I love people. I wanted to be a special effects makeup artist growing up, but deep down inside, when I became a Christian later on in my high school years, and I started to get involved in ministry and I started to get involved with people on a social level, I really just wanted to connect with people. I longed to have deep discussions, to get to know somebody, and for them to know me. And that's what love is. That's what love really is about. It's about that, connection. And so I'm going to start here tonight. I'm going to read over some notes about the issue of love that I kind of went through. And the song, again, I talked about the issue of songs. Now I'm going to put the links to the songs in here later on that you can go back and listen to if you want to. But the song that I'm going to reference is "Let My Love Open the Door." It's one of my favorite songs. I used it in my wedding, um, and it's Pete Townsend from. Hold on here. Is that? Can you hear me a little better? I'm still learning some of this stuff. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. 1 1 1 1 1. We'll see. I don't know. Okay. Well, I'm working on this, so I apologize if it's not working properly. Uh, if you are watching this chat, please chime in and let me know how the sound is, because I am figuring this out as I go. So Pete Townsend wrote the song "Let My Love Open the Door," and it was for the 1980 album Empty Glass, 1981, I believe, or 82, right around in there. And it's a great album, but it was originally going to be for a Who album, but he saved it for his own. And if you remember the song, when people keep repeating that you'll never fall in love and everybody keeps retreating, but you can't seem to get enough, let my love open the door. There's a slow version that he did for the movie Grosse Point Blank that I wanted to that I loved the slower take on it. So I wanted to deal with that song a little bit because it deals with a great issue of love. And so the points that I'm going to kind of deal with are this, is that what is love? It's something that we really want to have an understanding of. It's connection. It's knowing somebody and being known. Now, pardon me as I go through some of my notes here. It's a way to connect, to know and be known on an intimate level. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean romantic. Intimacy doesn't have to necessarily mean romance. It has to deal with bonding, vulnerability, somebody knowing you and you knowing them. To really feel that no matter how bad things get by our hands or not, how much BS we either that either gets piled on us by the world, or how much BS we throw out into the world, that we're still loved. Now, this was written a few years ago, but it's still true to this day. I said, recently someone very close to me told me, "You don't really know me." Now, you have to understand something. I've known this person for almost 40 years. We've had a friendship that has grown through hills and valleys, ups and downs, and we've had long conversations at depth, just about everything. We've been through family deaths together, the whole kit and caboodle. I felt that I'd come to know this person very well, and in turn, they knew me pretty well. When this was said to me, I have to admit it hurt. Now, I wasn't romantically linked to this person. Let me tell you, I wasn't romantically linked to this person at all. But this person was family to me. And I always have tried to connect with them on the most vulnerable levels that I could, and was hoping that they would do the same for me. And then God, at one point, now I do reference God because that's in my life, and you might have something different. I got some insight. It's a matter of trust. You don't know me translates to I don't trust you. Let me say that again. You don't know me translates to I don't trust you. I listened to that song over and over again, and I started to see a whole new level to this. You and I, were known. And what is known? What can the word known be? Known can translate to the word love. We are known. We are loved. It's just that we haven't realized it yet. We see our flaws and we want to hide our flaws. We want to control this house that we live in because we are afraid that if people see our dirty laundry, if people see our flawed nature, they will reject us. And that does happen. But that also reveals to you the level of depth of love that that person may or may not have for you. It exposes a lot of truth when we expose ourselves about the people around us. Um, we go through life saying or thinking, someday, if they see the real me, if they just let me show them. The truth is, we show the world daily who we are. And if you don't, again, spiritual standpoint, God knows your heart through the process. We don't think those close to us who really love us know or see this. We just don't trust. Be it as a result of years of hurt that we've gone through or whatever, trust is something that doesn't take hold in our lives very easily. I think God calls us to a level of vulnerability. We're called to be vulnerable. I mean, think about it. Look at the world that we live in. The world wants you to be polarized. Look at all the people trying to separate us for control. You're in this group. You hate that person because they're not in your group. Stay polarized. Stay polarized. There is a force out there that is trying to destroy unity and love amongst people. There's so much diversity on this world. We have to find common ground. We have to find, or we're going to self implode. And this is the only ball we got. We're not going to be able to make it onto another ball. We got to make this work. So think of it this way. God calls us to a level of vulnerability that at some points it can be painful. Have you ever revealed your heart to somebody and just had it stomped on? Yeah, I have several times. And I'm also going to make a confession here. I've stomped on people's hearts. Now, did I do it on purpose? There were some times, yeah, I did. Were there a lot of times that I did it and I didn't realize I was doing it? Yeah. In my ignorance, I didn't realize what I was doing until afterwards. Like I said, I'm going to be vulnerable here. It's the only way in this world that we're ever going to get any closeness and healing in our lives is if we're vulnerable. And I might as well be the first one to throw the pebble in the pond on this. I've hurt people, and people have hurt me. It's what we do. It's self-preservation. That's our animal instinct: kill or be killed, emotionally or otherwise. If we let, if we open the door of our hearts and trust not what others think about us, but rather who we are and who we were created to be, then we learn to filter who really are trustworthy and who is not. And we can trust that the wounds of a friend, because we know their hearts and know they love us. Now, the wounds of a friend, what does that mean? What it means is someone who really loves you and cares for you is not always going to tell you what you want to hear. And they're not always going to sugarcoat things, and they're not always going to make you feel good. They're going to tell you what you need to hear. Brutal honesty. Because if you're not ready to hear honesty, if you're on the receiving end of it, it can be brutal to you. The truth is offensive, no matter how it's packaged, to those unwilling or unable to hear it. I'll say that again. The truth is always offensive to those, no matter how it's packaged, to those unable or unwilling to hear it. So if you have a friend who you know their heart and they're telling you something that really hurts and makes you angry, but you know their heart and their intent, listen to that person. They love you. And if you're fighting it, it's because of something in you that you're not addressing, that you need to address. And that is something that we've got to take care of. You've got to work on it. I've got to work on it. We all have those issues in life. And so that's a wounds of a friend. So I'm going to say some things in here that might get you PO'd at some points. I'm going to say some things that'll ruffle feathers. Why? Because these are the very things that have ruffled my feathers at some other point in my life. The trusted wounds of a friend are good, and they don't need to be taken defensively. If they really are a friend and you really know their hearts. So when you say you don't know me, all you're doing is exposing your own lack of trust, especially if this person has walked alongside of you for a long time. You're not dealing with your own issues. So that's kind of where I wanted to deal with again tonight. This is a YouTube radio program I'm going to try to do 5 nights a week for an hour or so. That's the goal. Again, I grew up on a guy like Art Bell, who was this late night radio talk show host who did all these kind of paranormal stuff, but I liked his late night feel. Um, in terms of success for me, this is there's nothing. I'm not shooting for success. Would I like to reach a lot of people? Sure. Um, but this is also an attempt for me not to be alone and connect with you, and hopefully you connect back. I'd love to see people chat in here. Maybe if I get a phone line set up, have people call in and we can talk about things. I'm not a pastor. I'm not a licensed pastor. I'm not a licensed psychologist, clinical psychologist from the state of California. I can't give legal advice. I'm not a lawyer. As an old pastor of mine said one time, he goes, he goes, I'm just a one beggar showing another beggar where to find a piece of bread. And I think I don't know if I mentioned it this round. There's something else too. Another pastor might say to me one time, he goes, "You know what your problem is?" I go, "What? Tell me my problem." Everyone tells me my problem. Now I might have repeated myself. If I have, I apologize because this is the second video I've done back to back on this topic. He goes, "You're too corrupt for the church and too pure for the world. You're in that gray zone. No one knows how to handle you." That's exactly where I need to be. I need to be able to see both sides of the coin. I have my own personal convictions. By the same token, I never want to be so committed to one side or the other that I lose sight of anybody on either side who I can identify with and bond with and build a relationship with. Because that's why we're on this earth, to build relationships. So that's kind of the overview for tonight. I just wanted to share this with you again, let you know where we're at, what this is about. It's going to get better as time goes on. I'm going to learn more so the video quality will be better, the sound quality will be better. I'm going to be focusing on a lot of these things a little more. So uh, anyway, that's kind of where we're at tonight. If you have any thoughts, any suggestions, text me, email me if you know me on my friends list and whatnot. And anyway, well, thank you. Have a good night. Thank you for being with me on my first video. And yeah, I look forward to talking with you guys again. Again, please chime in and subscribe. And yeah, let me know you're out there. If you got any thoughts and want to just contribute, please do. Have a good night now. Bye.